Hi, friends. It's Randy
and Jess,
and we're going to cut the bullshit.
And let's get into women's mental health.
Anxiety is an asshat. Why women have more anxiety than men and how to get rid of it like a boss.
In this episode, we're going to explore and share why women have more anxiety than men and what you can do about your anxiety.
We are also going to show you how to reframe your anxiety, why that's important, and why it can be so empowering.
So empowering.
Breathe, bitch.
Breathe, bitch. Yes. At the end, we're going to practice box breathing and other methods to help you breathe.
Yes, because I suck at breathing. So Jessica's going to use me as an example on how to properly breathe. And I will show you how a person who doesn't breathe well, me,
right? Show them how to breathe.
And she's going to reframe and show me what I should be doing because I do not breathe very well. And it is very helpful when you're having an anxiety attack.
It's helpful just to do it like 3 times a day, honestly.
Well, yeah, it is. It's good for your brain function. It's good for your body. Like, you do need a lot of oxygen, and I'm probably not getting enough oxygen to my brain, so.
Right? And then also want to let you know, we're going to be putting this up on YouTube channel because I want you to actually see how we box breathe. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to show, I can walk you through it, but it really helps being able to actually see it.
Yeah, see it, and then you can like visualize it so it's easier for you to do. We have a new YouTube channel, Randy and Jess Podcast, and you can find us on YouTube there.
Absolutely.
We're excited.
We are excited. All right. Have you ever thought,
what if I fail?
I'm so nervous that I must be having a heart attack.
People are going to laugh at me if I make a mistake.
This anxiety is going to make me crazy.
What if the world ends tomorrow?
Things aren't going to work out. They never work out.
Right. And that's the part of anxiety is that we catastrophize like over and over again. Like, what if I drive off the road? Like, what if I'm going to lose my job tomorrow? Like, what if I have a heart attack because of this? Like, it, boom, boom, boom. You're ping-ponging all over the place like a pinball machine, like ding, 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 over and over again. And it's like, you don't know where you're going to end up. So just explain what exactly technically anxiety is from a therapist's point of view.
Okay. So everybody gets anxious or nervous every once in a while, right? Mm-hmm. We've had to do that speech class. Totally normal, right? Anxiety is when it's kicked up even higher, right? You're so nervous. You're so anxious. It interferes with your daily life.
Yeah.
Right?
So your ability to function, right? So it's impeding like your work, your school, your relationships, like things that you do physically. So it's like causing issues for all of those things. That's when you actually have anxiety disorder.
Or like if you overreact with something. We were moving and my husband was helping. I want to do this air quote thing, helping. He was helping. And what he was doing, and I was nervous because the movers were coming. It was like, I don't know, pandemic time. We're moving in the middle of this. And he took
that was already, moving is up on the scale of like having like a death in the family for like stressors and stuff. So
yes. Yeah. And so these movers are coming through and he took all of these little boxes of Band-Aids that I had and dumped them into a gigantic bag. And I flipped out. Like, I overreacted. I flipped out.
It was just like the smallest thing, but it triggered you.
It triggered me because I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm never going to be able to find that size Band-Aid that I need. And I'm the one that has to get the Band-Aids when the kid is bleeding.
Right.
Right? And he was looking at me like,
what just happened?
What just happened? What are you doing? And eventually, I just chucked all that and bought new Band-Aids because I was like, I can't even handle this.
So it's like you couldn't control your response to the situation. And that's oftentimes happens with anxiety. Like, boom, like right there. And then you're like, how did that happen? Where did that come from? Yep. Like, you already have like all this kind of like anxiousness built up in your body. And then one thing, it's like a tripwire, you know, and then it's like, it's all over after that. And so anxiety just freaking plain sucks. Yeah. It can affect you during the day. It can affect your nights. It's like not like there's not like a certain time frame for it to happen. Like it can keep you up at night. It can, you know, interfere with your daily work focus. So.
Yeah. And it doesn't just go away like in an hour. It's not like you can take it, you know, a Tylenol and it's gone. There's so many different types or subtypes of anxiety. And so I think just so we're not here for like 5 hours talking to y'all.
Right. Just talk about one of them.
We're going to talk about one, which is the one I see the most, which is just generalized anxiety disorder. And that is the extreme and unrealistic worry and tension, even if there's like nothing to trigger the feelings, right?
You're worrying just about so many different topics too. And it could be anything from like your health, work, school, relationships, friendships. There's no way to box it into like one subject. It's like anything and everything can make you anxious.
Right. It's like that, like when you play with slime, right? It goes everywhere. Oh my gosh. Kinetic sand. Oh, glitter. It's glitter.
It's like a glitter bomb.
It's a glitter bomb.
But it's not like the cool kind. It's like glitter bombs off on your body. And that's another thing is that it can be so debilitating and unhealthy for you physically too, because it's causing like a physical response in your body too, while you're like worrying about all these things that are like cycling in your mind.
You had said earlier about it being bouncy, bounce, bounce. And that's kind of what anxiety does when you have generalized anxiety. Everything makes you anxious and you're worried about everything because you just don't know what you can control, what you can't control, and everything feels out of control.
So what are some of the physical side effects of generalized anxiety disorder?
In general, I would say restlessness. There is like difficulty concentrating.
Oh, yeah.
Sleeping problems, right? And I want to get into some of the actual like symptoms a little bit later, right? Like people talk about getting like your hands are sweaty or like I'm hot. Is anybody else hot in here?
Right. Feeling like you're having like a heart attack and things like that. We were talking about earlier how you had gone to the hospital thinking you were having a heart attack, right?
Yeah. I was laughing because I was like early 30s and here I was like, oh my gosh, something is wrong with my heart. I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling tingly in my legs. I think I can't breathe. I go to the ER and I'm sitting in this like gurney in the hallway forever for them to finally just go, oh, you're having anxiety. And then they dismissed me.
Right.
But they didn't explain it. They didn't tell me what it was. They didn't say get help.
Right. That often happens is that you're dismissed as it's just air quoting, anxiety. And it's not just anything. Like you are validated in feeling that and you should always get it checked out if you're unsure, like what's really happening. And sometimes you need to demand, help. And it's okay to do that. It's not less than anything else that is happening to anyone else. If it's happening to you, like it's valid and you should, explore that.
I think because this happened years ago for me, I'm hoping the world is getting a little bit better about mental health. I don't think
so, but that's okay.
I'm still hoping.
I'm glad you're hopeful. She's the hopeful one.
Right?
I'm the pessimistic one.
So I want to also tell people it's not your fault, right? Like I felt like I went to the hospital that day silly, right? But it's not your fault. And
you feel ashamed almost.
Yeah.
Like, and I wasted their resources. I wasted their time. Like,
my money.
I wasted my money. Like it's not, really important. No, it is important. And that's what we've talked about too. Like we talked about like, shame and guilt in our previous episodes. And no.
Get rid of it.
No, get rid of it. Let it go. Like you are allowed to explore those feelings and validate them and know that your body is okay.
And we go through, and really when I work with people is I kind of explore, there's like 3 kind of areas that we talk about as therapists, right? Generally, it can be a chemical imbalance in your body, right? These are hormones. This could be something from a lot of trauma, a lot of, like heightened stress, like, I don't know, like grad school for, 2 years.
Oh,
yeah, that stuff can really get you.
Right. Childbirth, if you've given birth. If you've been through like a divorce, if you've had death, childhood trauma and things like that, like these can be all things that we carry in our body and in our minds, and that, and paired with your DNA and your genetic makeup, like it can cause chemical imbalances, and that controls, your whole mood.
Exactly. And with heredity, right? If your mom has anxiety or your dad had anxiety, that's why I always ask if there's a family history of mental health issues, any anxiety, because it's more likely. In the U.S., anxiety is the most common mental health disorder. Most common across the entire U.S.
That's crazy. If you have had like repeated stress over and over and over again for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden, like you're not stressed, like your body can create like a response that you're stressed because it's used to being in that fight or flight mode all the time. And now all of a sudden you're like, why do I have anxiety? And it's like, well, your body's been in anxiety mode for so long, like it's just continuing down that path.
And that's why we want to teach you how to breathe later on. So just watch us and stick around to breathe. In the U.S., they're saying it affects 40 million Americans.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh. In the last 2 or 3 years, I'm sure it was probably even higher than that.
Oh, yeah. With everything going on in our world and stuff. And especially right now with like the way things are with like food prices, gas prices. Well, overall, all, things have gone up and the economy is really hard right now. And it's like, so that is creating more anxiety, more worry, more stressors for people to carry. So I'm sure like more people than that are having anxiety issues right now.
Yeah, I don't even think we're done. I don't even think we're done with much anxiety.
This is just like the starting point of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Even though most anxiety disorders start like when you're a child or an adolescence, something huge in the world like, I don't know, COVID or a recession, right?
Can trigger
it.
Yeah, and bring it to the surface. Like maybe you have learned to kind of like manage it or like push it down, or like you were told, oh, maybe like you're just shy or you're just whatever, maybe it's been downplayed your whole life and now you're just realizing what it really is. You're seeing maybe some triggers that are causing it, or like you said, like there's been like a major stressor in your life and like all of a sudden now it's at the forefront. In some ways it's bad that it's like happening like to you, but it's good now maybe that you have the wherewithal to understand it better and get yourself like the help that you need for it.
And I think most people who have anxiety feel that everybody feels like this. They think that this,
I thought that,
this is normal.
This is normal for me to always be like on edge like this and always be worrying and always catastrophizing. And I was like, oh, no, other people don't think that way.
No, other people don't do that. I had a friend who we were going to the beach one day and it was me, her and the kids and like my husband and the dog. And as we're going to the beach, she's bringing the biggest, ginormous first aid kit I've ever seen in my life.
You're like, what is happening?
I was like, why do you have a duffel bag?
Yeah.
What is that? And it was her first aid kit. And I was like, okay, we're just going to the beach, right? Like, I think I may have had a Band-Aid on me. I'm not sure.
No.
But because she had heart problems.
Oh.
Right? And she's had surgeries for her.
So she was anxious.
She was anxious. She's like, no, we might need something from
this. So for her, that was like a support. It was her support bag.
It was.
That she needed.
Yeah. I mean, she had that and she brought all sorts of fun stuff.
Well, and I think like a lot of people deal with their anxiety in that way too, like creating like bug out bags or like food storage or things like that. Like you feel so out of control about certain things, so you do other things to make you feel like you have a little bit more control over the situation.
Exactly. I don't let my car get below a quarter tank anymore, ever. And it wasn't because anything happened to me, right? Okay. We talk about a couple years ago, the Paradise Fires in California.
Right.
When you've known people or worked with people who have said things like, I had to choose between getting my dog or getting gas.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, I used to let my thing go down to empty all the time. I'm like, I got like 50 miles, right?
I'm the worst about putting gas in my car.
Right. I'm like, I like
to ride it
miles,
to the very edge. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, quarter tank. I'm like, no. I need more gas because if I have to bug out, I need to make sure I can get my dog and get gas later.
Mm-hmm. So what are some we were kind of talking about that, physical symptoms that come alongside with anxiety that I think like a lot of times we don't talk about enough, because I think sometimes we think like it's just all internalized, but it can be very external at the same time.
Exactly. And these are what I call your warning signs. I want people to be able to say, okay, if this is how I'm feeling, I might be feeling anxious, because by the time we can't breathe or we think we're having a heart attack, we've missed all of our body's warning signs, right? Because now it's in like the total fight or flight and freak out mode.
Yeah, our body and our mind has been trying to tell us like, we're going down this path, or we're really good at not paying attention to red flags. Like,
really good.
Especially as women. We're just like, oh, what, like I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this. And you're not listening to your body. You're not listening to yourself. It comes back again to self-care, and you're pushing it aside, and then it's too late.
Right. And that's what happens. So the first one is the being cold and having sweaty hands, right? Like if your hands are sweaty, or if you're sweating more. Sweating.
Armpit
say
sweat.
Armpit sweat. Yeah. If you're sweating more, but yet, it's kind of cold outside, or nobody else is hot, right?
And I find that too, like a lot of times, like I have a lot of medical trauma from childhood. And like when I go into the doctor's office, I'll get up like from the chair or the table and it's like so sweaty. And I'm like, why am I sweating so much? And then I'm like, oh, because I was anxious, you know? So my body was like hyped up.
The other one, as I was sipping here, is dry mouth. Having dry mouth, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so thirsty. Why is my mouth so dry?
Heart palpitations. You feel like your heart's going to like just pop out of your chest.
Some people feel like they're either going to throw up or they have like butterflies or like their stomach is in knots.
That's definitely like, I used to get that a lot too, especially as a kid. And it's like hard because you don't know how to like verbalize it between like, but all you know how to say is like my stomach hurts. And like, that's what was, my daughter has had major anxiety for a long time. And like for her, that was it. Like my stomach hurts. And like even still now, she'll just be like, if it's so, I can see like if it's something she doesn't really want to like do or like face, you know, she'll be like, I don't feel good. Like I feel nauseous. And it's like, okay, well, let's, you know, find out like where this is really coming from.
But most people are like, yeah, you're right. My stomach hurts.
Right. You're just like attributing it to just the physical side and not also like the emotional, mental side.
Mine is muscle tension, right? As I'm hitting everything. Mine is like my shoulders feel like they're in my ears and everything is just scrunched up.
Yeah, like you carry all of that like in your body. And a lot of times if you've had a lot of trauma, you carry that in your body. And a big place too to carry that is in like your hips and like your lower back and stuff. Like we tend to like carry our trauma in those places. And so that can be like a trigger point too. Like you're feeling always like tense or hurt or like you have knots in your body.
My massage person is always like, man, you are tense.
Yeah.
You're tense.
Yeah.
And then the final one is kind of where everybody goes, whoa, is shortness of breath, right? That's the one everybody says, oh, I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Yeah. It feels like an elephant is sitting on your chest, right?
Or an asthma attack.
Right. Or an asthma attack or like hyperventilating, but like not really at the same time. Like you just feel like can't even like get a breath in at all.
I wonder how many people out there are like listening to this and freaking out and going, I think I have anxiety right now. This is making me anxious. Oh my God. Okay. So
we'll also listen to our podcast about ADHD because it also, and depression, they all go hand in hand. And sometimes you have to like rule out one. You can have all of them. You can have one of them, you know, more so than the other. So it's kind of, you know, it can be hard to figure out, but that's why we're breaking this down and talking about it.
Right. And I always say they're friends, they hang out. So you just have to.
Yeah. Sometimes they like to link up and you're like, no.
Right. So mentally, those are all physically.
Right.
Mentally, there's also the feelings of panic, fear, uneasiness, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but something bad is going to happen tomorrow. I know it's going to happen.
Yeah, you can almost be like frozen, that you don't even know like what to do. You're petrified, having nightmares and stuff. When I have anxiety and stuff, like I'll have a lot of like dreams about like being like chased or like falling off of things, like things that are like out of my control and like stressing me out because there's, you know, stressors in my life that I'm not dealing with.
Or like repeated flashbacks of the trauma or thoughts. This one is why I tell a lot of people, like if you've ever been in a car accident somewhere, oftentimes driving by that place will make you anxious because you're like, I already got in a car accident here.
Right. So it could happen again or something, or it's bringing up the physical response of like that accident or like the emotional response you had. And I think a lot of times what people don't understand too is when we're having like a trauma response like that, like can revert back to that time and space. It's like, even if you've done like a lot of work and stuff on it, like sometimes it just takes you back, whether it's like an age that you were at that, the emotional state, the physical state, and that can all like come up to the surface.
Behavior. This is where it gets mixed up a lot with ADHD, or ADHD gets mixed up a lot with anxiety. Right. It's the inability to be still or calm. Sometimes it's those ritualistic behaviors, not necessarily, you know, obsessive compulsive behaviors, but, you know, it's the, did I turn off the hair curling iron?
Right.
I need to go check it.
The stove? Like, did I wash my hands? Like, did I switch the laundry? Just kind of like intrusive, like thoughts or behaviors. You feel like I need to go do this before I can move on, you know, but it's not like as, you know, as intense as OCD, but it's just still like another like worry or thing like hanging over you.
Right. And half the time it's because our brains are so scattered, not the ADHD, but because we have a lot going on. We're ping-ponging like you were talking about.
Right.
That we're like, I can't remember actually doing that. And so I have to go back and check it now.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're so scatterbrained. Like they say, like, oh, women are scatterbrained. Well, this is one of the reasons why. And that kind of leads into why the fuck women? Why do women have more anxiety than men?
Yeah, women have almost twice as much anxiety than men do.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's not fair.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, a lot of things about being a woman is not fair. So we get to carry the brunt of the stuff. And I think a lot of that has to do with our brain chemistry, like our body chemistries are different. Yeah, our hormones fluctuate too as women. Like we are, have a menstrual cycle. Like we have, those of us that are older, like have like menopause cycles. Like or if you're pregnant, like there's like all these different hormone cycles that are constantly fluctuating for
us.
Even
ovulating.
Yes, I get triggers with ovulating. I get triggers with actually menstruating. Like and so it's like, okay, what point of the month, is it? Oh yeah, that's why I'm feeling that too. And I also I have PCOS, and so I've always tracked my cycles, but it has helped me with my ADHD and anxiety because I know when to expect that I'm going to have like a hormone shift, and I'm probably going to have like a harder time like this week, like managing, my emotions or physical symptoms, and like what do I need to do to either ease that or like treat it.
And there's so many different apps that you can actually track that, right? You can old school and calendar it.
I use an app, yeah.
Yeah, share it with your partner because sometimes they need to know why you're being a little bit more
and
today.
I did. Like I have an app and you can share it with your partner. So they have access to like your calendar. And I'm like, if you think I'm being psycho, here you go. Double check. Like, because it's like a lot of times people, even when we've been with them for a long time, we expect them to know like our cycle and our patterns, and they just don't because they're on their own cycle, their own patterns, their own thing, so it's like you're constantly having to communicate like what's happening.
And most partners don't want to talk about your period, right? Most of them are
a lot of them don't. Like I'm lucky that I have somebody that's not an issue with. And in our household, like I've always made it like, it's just part of life, like talking about that with, my daughter and like in front of like her dad and stuff like that. But a lot of people it does make uncomfortable. So, but talk about it more, try to make it a more comfortable conversation.
It happens at our dinner time table now.
Yeah,
with my tween. She will sit there and describe her flow and she will just go into details because, she's like, we need to tell the world. And my husband is like sitting there eating meatloaf.
God,
okay,
not today. Yeah.
I don't know what to do with this. Right. And he just was like, I don't know how y'all have vaginas because, man, it's way too much.
It is. It's a lot. I'm always like, do you want to deal with this? And they're like, hell no.
No.
So, yeah, the surge in estrogen and progesterone can cause those disturbing thoughts, those repetitive thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, the obsessive thoughts, and the impulses. And that can be like very debilitating. I remember like when I got pregnant my second time, I was just like, F this, and like took off towards the beach. Like I was just like so irrational and I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, why am I being so irrational right now? And then I was like, I don't normally act this way around my cycle. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Like, I was like, holy shit, I'm acting extra bad shit. Like,
well, I think I ran away. I was like, I was pregnant. I was like, I'm running away. I packed my food. I packed my stuff. I went to my mom's house.
Yeah.
And like, she said,
that's a normal, don't feel bad.
Yeah.
That.
She was like, honey, now you need to go home to your husband.
And you were like, no, I don't want to do that.
I call him on the way home and he was like, oh, hey, glad you're coming home. Da, 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 da. And I was like, he didn't know that I ran away.
Right.
He was just like, no, dude, you're just pregnant. You're pregnant. So women, not only like being pregnant, right, but women have more life stressors.
Right.
And we're more likely to ruminate, to think about them over and over and over, right?
Yeah. And that ratchets up the anxiety level. Yeah. Like it's like, you're like, oh, it's okay here. And then you're like thinking about it, and then you're like, oh, blowing the top off.
Right. And I'm not saying all women do this or no women do this.
Right.
Most men hit things from a very logical versus emotional perspective, which is why women kind of ruminate because it's more of the emotional piece of it, right?
Yeah,
and
well,
again,
they want to be fixers and we want to kind of like understand things more. And then that can also create a cycle too, because then we're like WebMDing like ourselves, and that does not help. Do not do that when you have anxiety. Don't
do that, right? But honestly, I think what I was just talking about, I think it's bullshit, right? Because I really think this is something that we're taught.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're taught that we can't fix it. We're taught to think about it, or we're taught to take it in.
Or to suppress it.
Yes.
Just push it down. Like,
right?
Don't worry about it. Like the whole, like we talked about toxic positivity in another episode. Like just push it down. Just, be happy. Just feel all the good vibes.
Don't
and
worry,
it's like,
be happy.
Yeah. And it's like, no, like this is a feeling. Try to understand it. Try to get a hold of it. See what you can do to work with it.
And the other, this might be a trigger for some, but women are more likely to be physically, emotionally, sexually abused than men are. I'm not saying men don't have this, but women are they have a higher percentage.
Right. So those things happening to us are more likely to lead to the development of anxiety disorder. And yes, a lot of women are sexually abused, molested, and things like that at a young age. I'm sorry if this is triggering for most women. I would say 9 out of 10 women that I personally know have dealt with this, me, myself included. So you are not alone in that. It's triggering me just talking about it. But we are more likely to be abused, and that can lead to this.
Yes, to anxiety.
Yes.
And that's also why we don't spank children anymore, right? We don't spank children because they're showing that it leads to them being higher anxiety as adults.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I was spanked, and I was always, I think that kind of led to me, my people-pleasing tendencies at first before I broke out of that was that, I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to do the wrong thing. So.
Yeah, I remember, you remember those paddle balls, those paddles with the ball, the rubber ball,
and
you just do bong, bong.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad would break that off. This is my bio dad, break that off, and that's how he would paddle me. I remember that.
Well, that's funny. Have you ever watched that movie Dazed and Confused? Because in the 70s, it was big to have those paddles. Okay, I was in a sorority. We had the paddles for anyways, because they used to actually use them to torment, but now it's just they don't do that anymore. There's all these
rules,
checks and balances and stuff to hazing and stuff. But I have a paddle, but in the 70s they used to drill holes through the paddles because you get more whoop.
Oh,
and it's so in Dazed and Confused, the seniors go after the freshmen with the paddles, and they're scattering, trying to get away from them because they don't want to be hit with these paddles. And it's that's kind of what anxiety just comes out of, whoop, and whomps you. But we've kind of learned those things if we have had those responses to those things that have happened to us, and kind of talk about how our brain changes too, with abuse.
Well, and I want to jump back for 1 second. I want to jump back that in most states, it is illegal to hit a child with something in your hand. What I'm talking about happened, we're going to call it a very long time ago, 40-ish years ago.
We're not going to give our ages.
Yeah. Okay, I just did.
Yeah, you just aged us.
I just aged us. But some people still do, and that's a CPS report. So hitting a child with something in your hands, closed-fisted, most states, that's a CPS report. So I just want to throw that out there. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're right. It changes, sexual abuse, especially sexual abuse, will change the way the blood flows into our hippocampus, right? Which is what helps us do emotional processing.
Yeah, we can put a picture up on our blog on randyandjustpodcast.com to you guys can kind of visualize the changes in that, because it's our brain is so intense. It's hard to kind of understand. I've studied, as a psychotherapist, who specializes in trauma, I've studied a lot of brain scans, and it's just like so fascinating, but like the general population is not going to be like into that. So we can kind of show you like what that does to your brain and like how it changes it. And like, that's something like it's changed your whole brain pattern and the way your brain flows. And so you have to be kind to yourself. Like now as like an adult, if these things have happened to you while your brain has been developing, and like now you're battling the way your brain is physically shaped. Mm-hmm. But that area that she's talking about, the hippocampus, it involves your emotional processing.
And I'm being triggered right now, just so you know, because I hated that class. Oh man, I hated that class. I mean, like that was like the worst class for me ever. So I'm so glad Randy likes that. Like and she's like, I love it. I'm like, she's like, I'm over here shivering.
Don't show me, statistical research and brain, the biology side.
Yeah,
she's
I'm
like,
out.
no, she's out.
I'm out. All right, so. Now that we've given everybody, including me and Randy, a warning sign trigger and some anxiety.
And triggered our own self. Yeah.
How do people deal with this? How do we handle anxiety? I mean, there's a couple ways, right?
Oh yeah, there's a couple of ways. You can decide to medicate or you can decide to meditate.
Right.
I mean, no, there's like more than that, but like, it kind of comes down to that, like how you want to handle it. If you want to go like the medication route, if you want to try natural things first, it's really up to you. It's your body, it's your mind, but it's like if it is like impeding like on your life so much and causing so much functional issues, it's probably time to like go talk to somebody about it, talk to your therapist about it and things like that.
Right. Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
I know with medications, there are 3 kind, and I saw one of them really, really a lot was prescribed more this last 2 years than I've ever seen. So we have anti-anxiety medications, right? Those address, more so anxiety. Those are more of I call them the quick fixes, right? They don't give those out as much because those are habit forming.
Yeah. And they don't cure an anxiety. No. It's kind of like a Band-Aid. Like you do need to go in and do like the back end work. Like you need to face the issues that are triggering this to get a control over it. But this is like something that can kind of like stop like the geyser that's happening of like your emotions, and you can't function while you're learning those skills for yourself.
They try to not prescribe those as much.
Right.
They would rather you be on an antidepressant, which actually works with both depression and anxiety.
Right. So if you're having both or like a little of both, that's like, it's like a 2-for-1, right? So it's like better, like you're not having to take like double the amount of like a medication and things like that, and then having to worry about those side effects.
And they find that most antidepressants do address it. And so that is usually their first if you go medication. And the other one that I saw a lot this last couple of years is a beta blocker. It's for high blood pressure.
Right.
Or they would do like an antihistamine.
So that kind of helps reduce some of the physical, things that come along with anxiety disorders.
Calms you a little bit.
Yeah.
Is what they found.
Yeah. Like gets you out of that rapid heartbeat, shaking, trembling things if you have those physical responses. Because like sometimes the physical is so overwhelming and then it causes like the emotional to ratchet up again and again. And so it's like if you can almost calm your body down first, then it gives you like that breather to be able to deal with like the mental side of it.
Yeah. And, I will say this doesn't cure everything. I like aromatherapy. I love essential oils. I don't think they fix it.
Yeah.
But I think that having them in can sometimes help you breathe better.
Yeah.
Can help you settle. Like lavender is great.
Yeah. And for some people, they don't like scent at all, or it can be like a hard trigger for them. So like then things like utilizing sometimes sound can be, something like guided meditation or things like that, or like doing what I specialize in therapy is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy.
She so wants to say.
I do want to say CBD. I'm always going there. That's another again. So, but like with CBT therapy, like you're focusing on the mindfulness, like becoming more aware of your thoughts and your patterns and learning to manage it in your mind.
And CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's what I do as well.
Yes.
And so with CBT, it's becoming aware of, like I talked about, the warning signs, knowing what your triggers are. A trigger would be If you don't like your mother-in-law and she's coming over, well, that's a trigger, right? If you're taking a final and you know that you're nervous about it, it's a final, that's a trigger.
Yeah, or like you're going to like a family event and you know somebody is going to be there that you've had like issues with in the past. Like that can be like a huge trigger. And with this, like I was talking about studying the brain and stuff, because your brain has been wired a certain way with CBT therapy, you can teach yourself to rewire your brain, basically, like your thought patterns. And you can repeat those again and again and again to create new pathways in your brain to think about things, which is why I love it so much.
Right. And that's why I love the reframing. And why it's so powerful, because what you're doing is the reframing. And we're not talking about the lemonade and lemons and toxic positivity.
No. So what the fuck is reframing? Explain that.
Okay. So reframing is, instead of saying, I can't manage this, is saying, this is something that I can manage, especially if we're looking at anxiety, right? It's not unmanageable. This is something that I can learn to manage. And it's taking control of it and being able to say, okay, this is what I can do with it.
Yeah. And breaking it down into pieces that you can like manage. Like maybe you can't manage all of it at once.
No.
But maybe you can manage this one step.
Chunk it out.
One piece. Yeah.
Chunk it out, right?
Like a puzzle. Like just take one piece and set it there and focus on that one piece, not all the other ones that are on the table. Just worry about the one.
Right. And so the first part is actually looking at how can you change your view on anxiety, right? Yeah. It's not something it's not a victim. It's not your fault. It's not something happening to you. It's something that you have.
Right.
You know, if you say, I have anxiety, this is how I do this. And a lot of times I'll have clients have something on their phone that says, I have anxiety. This is what happens to me when I have anxiety. This is what I need.
Right.
And that way,
I am not anxiety. Like you are not, that is not your personality. I think a lot of times we make it like, I have anxiety. That's my personality. I mean, we jokingly like, yeah, because we overuse it so much, like in social media and like jokingly and things like that. It's just my anxiety. Like, but that is not who you are as a person. It is just part of something that you're going through.
Well, and that's the next piece is normalizing it.
Right.
Right. I'm feeling anxious right now because of this. So this is what I need.
Yeah. And that's okay. This is normal. Like we said, 40 million people, probably more than that, because this is all that's been tracked, are experiencing this. You are not alone in it. Like this is not something that's abnormal. You don't need to feel alone.
It's no different than being hangry and saying, I need food, right? I'm hangry right now and I need to go get something to eat.
Yeah. And then the third piece of that is understanding it takes time, like daily practice to work on those thoughts and like managing your mind and managing your body and calming and centering yourself and grounding yourself. Those are some things, lots of tools that you can do for that.
And if you don't practice when you need to use it, it's like running a marathon. If I try to run a marathon next week and I hadn't ran, she's laughing.
I'm imagining us like,
right? I wouldn't even make it out the door. I'd be like, I can't even find my shoes.
I know. We'd be like, oh, I'm still at the coffee place getting coffee and the race is over. Like, meet you there in 5.
Right? So, but if you're going to practice for it, right? You decide you're going to do this Ironman, you got to practice. You're going to plan and you're going to practice every day. So that way when you do it, it's going to be hard, but you're going to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing when you practice these things every day.
And that helps you take back that control and empower yourself. And so that's why breathing is so important.
Breathing. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the first steps.
All right, so this is where if you want to jump on YouTube, I'll put a little marker so you can see. Okay.
I'm going to be your guinea pig.
You are. Okay, So Randy, I just want you to practice taking a regular breath. Don't do anything. No, don't move.
No. Okay, don't
do anything. Do exactly what you were. Now take a breath. Oh, it's not too bad. Oh. But that's because I think you practiced.
I was thinking, like, take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath.
That's why.
Okay, so as women, we typically will hunch our shoulders, right? We all do, because if we're putting our boobs out, and then we're like, we don't want to put our boobs out, right? Unfortunately,
another way we've been conditioned.
Yes, okay. Exactly. Good job.
I won't go off on that tangent.
So part of this is I want you to sit up.
Okay.
And I want you to. I'm going to sit up with you. I'll probably hit the mic.
No.
Okay, so I want you to sit up. Everybody out there, I want you to sit up. If you're driving, please don't do this until later.
Wait.
Okay, so
sit up, open up your shoulder. Oh, should I open up my shoulder?
I actually want you to put your hands on the back of your head, right? And just what do we call this?
I shave my armpits.
I know, thank goodness. Okay,
and put on deodorant.
So hands on the back of your head, so that way your shoulders are nice and open.
Well, like we used to do this like in PE class and stuff to like open up our lungs and stuff like after we like ran or like played sports. So you're like opening up your diaphragm.
Exactly. And then when you're ready on your count, I want you to count to 4 in your head. I want you to inhale through your nose.
Okay.
I want you to hold to 4 and then exhale through your mouth 4. But I want it like exaggerated, okay?
Okay, exaggerated.
So just count in your head, guys. Ready?
Now Randy, you get our heavy breathing.
Randy, you need to hold it for 4 though. You're just breathing in. Fast. You're going too fast. So
she's gonna put me on.
I am. Okay, so in through your nose to 4. Hold for 4. Exhale through your mouth. Do you see how that was different?
Yes.
How'd that feel different?
It feels like I'm getting oxygen in my body and filling it up. You know, and then it also makes you pause. So
it does.
It makes you stop and be in the moment.
So that's box breathing. I want you to do that no more than like 3 times because otherwise you have too much oxygen and you might get dizzy.
Yeah. So do it like, a couple of times.
And then take a break. If you need to do it again, do it again.
Yeah. And even if you're someplace where like you can't be like all like, hey, like woo woo. You can just, just sit up tall, like put your shoulders back.
Yes.
Take those. Nobody needs to know that you're doing it,
Chest out. Those. You got to really open up your lungs.
Yeah. Hide in the bathroom if you need to, if you're at work,
Right.
Like take those deep breaths and refocus yourself. And that can help ground you in the moment too. And we'll talk about grounding in another episode. But so that is like one step you can take at home to help yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So next one is my favorite. And I am going to do it here in the studio. I love bubbles. These actually are from my desk. I brought them in. And they have lavender scents in them. Do you mind lavender?
No.
Okay.
She's extra bougie with these bubbles.
I made them.
Yeah.
I made them. Okay. So if I go
and it's cheap. Like you can get bubbles for like, for like less than $1 at the dollar store and,
Yeah. I think these are like Target or something.
Yeah. And drop some lavender in there off Amazon. It doesn't have to be, it's like a really simple thing.
So this is hard for them as a podcast to see, but I'm just going to do it. If I go, nothing comes out of my bubbles.
You don't get the bubbles. Mm-hmm. You're just getting soap.
I just like spit all over my leg. On your leg. Right? Okay. So now if I go through, and I know this is hard because it's a podcast, guys, hang in there. And you just.
Oh, now the room is filled with bubbles.
Now the room is filled with bubbles and
they're so
smells
pretty.
Good.
Yeah.
But you could hear how I breathe differently.
Yeah. Deeply, slowly, with intent and purpose.
Yes. And this is something I used to have in my office when I was in office was I always had bubbles. People always walked away with bubbles.
And this is really good for kids that have anxiety too, because it's not something that is super imposing or like out of the ordinary that you would be blowing bubbles. And so this is a really good calming tool for like children too. A lot of kids have like anxiety and stuff. So.
Right. And you don't even have to tell them to breathe because they know they're not breathing. Because they can't blow the bubbles.
Right, because they want to produce the cool bubbles, the big bubbles and things like that. So they're just like instinctually like going to go for that. Like us as adults, like we have to kind of like calm ourselves down and be like, okay, like this is not dumb doing this. Like, and then you actually find like enjoyment in it too, which is, it's another great way for like self-care too.
I used to keep bubbles in the car when I was in traffic.
That's so stressful. Yeah.
When I was at like a dead stop, I would just roll the windows down and blow bubbles out the car.
Yeah, instead of like flipping off everybody, like as you're driving down the freeway, that's a much better coping skill.
Just blow bubbles. Usually I'm at a dead stop when I was doing it, but we just always had bubbles in the car. I don't even care that it gets soap everywhere. So
no.
Okay, so I'm feeling pretty calm now versus earlier. How about you?
Yeah, I do feel more centered and stuff after like breathing and like finding a little bit of like enjoyment and stuff, like even after talking about triggering things. So,
Okay.
So we made a step forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thank y'all
Thank you guys for listening.
And for hanging in with the rest of it. Jump on our YouTube. You can see me making fun of Randy and making her breathe.
Forcing me to breathe, which is sometimes what we need. We need somebody to be like, breathe, bitch, breathe, like we talked about. So, and we'll talk about more coping skills that you can use in our other podcasts. So listen up.
Yeah. And don't forget to jump on our website. We'll put some stuff up for you.
Yep. And we'll talk to you next week.
See you later.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thanks for listening and normalizing mental health with us.
Don't forget to check out our free resources and favorites on our website, unapologeticallyrandyandjess.com.
Like and share this episode and tune in next week.